So this is decision week here on WIP. We're drilling down on some Eagles matters for decisions that they're going to have to make and decisions that we as fans are assessing and coming up with our own conclusions to. And today's question to make a decision on is, do you want A.J. Brown back on the Eagles next season? And Ross, to be clear, I stated this from the beginning, and it's important to restate. It's not about do you want it, because everyone wants to want it. It's about whether you trust A.J. Brown to not cause disruptions and be a positive force instead of a negative force and to go forward with him. So do you trust him, Ross?
I think I'd have to answer no to that. You know, it feels like there's a pretty demonstrated track record of guys that are malcontents in the NFL and even in pro sports continuing to be malcontents.
Is he the James Harden of the NFL?
No, he's not that far, but it's so funny that you just said that, John, because it's like I saw this one headline where, like, Clippers can't believe Harden wants out. It was like, wait, what?
Really?
Because I think about, and he's not to this level, but like a T.O.
Yep.
Or I'll give you another one. Was it last year or the year before where the Dolphins gave Tyreek Hill and Jalen Ramsey new contracts to kind of keep them happy? And that lasted like half a season, you know? Because actually what happens when you give them a new deal is you just give them more leverage with which to be unhappy. Because if they're unhappy, what are you going to do? You know, then you're in a really bad spot. So I would love to know if he really believes all the things that he was saying with Micah at the Super Bowl, or if, you know, he sort of got the word, hey, we're going to try to do what we can with you, but you got to help us out here. You know, you can't come across as someone that really wants out. You got to come across as someone that wants to be here. I don't know that any of us know the answer to that, but that certainly has happened before where guys, you know, have been told by the organization, hey, we're going to try to move you here, but you got to help us. We're not going to just give you away, so you got to do all the right things so we can get the most in return for you.
So, Ross, we moving on from the AJ thing a little bit, we have a new offensive line coach in town, and my concern is that he is not the same level of elite as our former offensive line coach, and that's sort of, I don't know, his departure from Minnesota, it didn't look that good. He was not renewed.
He got let go.
Right. You know, so was that more a design of the guys he was working with weren't good enough, or is Chris Kuper a lesser coach than what we would want?
Well, so the Vikings offensive line has struggled for the last few years, and the thought was that it was primarily a personnel issue or an injury issue. So last offseason, they drafted a left guard in the first round and gave big money to center Ryan Kelly and a right guard Will Fries, and they were bad again. And so they decided that, okay, it's not the personnel, it was the offensive line coach. He had been O'Connell's offensive line coach for 4 years, the only offensive line coach O'Connell had. And at the end of the year, O'Connell said, we have to go in a different direction. So
that feels like a bad sign, Ross.
Well, it's not a great sign. But listen, you know, you got let go at times, John. I got let go too many times. That doesn't mean we weren't competent. That doesn't mean, but it does mean we weren't awesome. And so you're going from a guy that's generally considered the best in the NFL in Stoutland over the last 10 years to a guy whose organization that he was with the last 4 years is letting him go because they didn't feel like his unit was productive enough. So that is scary. That doesn't mean he can't be good here in Philly or can't be better the second time around. He certainly has more familiarity with Sean Mannion and the offense that the Eagles want to run than Stoutland.
Yeah.
And my guess is, I mean, they obviously wanted Stoutland back as the O-line coach. I think Stout probably felt like, I don't know if he felt like he didn't want to learn new tricks or if he just kind of had a bad taste in his mouth about more or less being demoted,
Yep.
where he was in charge of the run game to no longer being in charge of the run game. I will say this. I love Stout, and I was around a lot of the Eagles offensive linemen last week. They all love him. They all swear by him. I don't know if that affects Lane's decision or
Right.
Where Landon's head's at or any of those things. I don't know if that affects that or not.
Does it feel like it sets us back? Jeff Stoutland, one of the most revered coaches we've ever borne witness to, now being replaced by a guy who, just seems sort of meh.
Well, can I say this? Sometimes you might need to take one step back to go two steps forward. I saw a stat yesterday. I don't know if you guys saw this, but it was the amount of snaps. It might have been pass snaps under center from Warren Sharp, and it's crazy. It's like 8 of the top 11 teams all made the playoffs. The Eagles it was under center dropbacks in 2025. The Eagles were the third fewest. And what's crazy is the only 2 teams below them, the Chiefs and Commanders, both had very disappointing seasons as well. So I do think on some level the Eagles are going to run an offense this year that is the offense everybody's been running that's having success. You look at the Rams, the Bears, Seahawks. These are the top 10. Rams, Bears, Seahawks, Lions, Niners, Bills, Cowboys, say what you want. Their offense was awesome.
Yep.
Patriots, Packers, Vikings, Texans, Jaguars. I mean, these are the teams that are really good offenses and or going to the playoffs. It feels like the Eagles are kind of catching up with the times in terms of what's really working in NFL offense.
How did that happen, Ross? Think about that. We've always been so cutting edge. How did we slip so far to where the rest of the NFL feels like they're so far ahead of us offensively?
Because I think it switched a little bit. I think when the Eagles were doing all the zone read and the RPOs, that was kind of cutting edge, and Hurts had that terrific year with Steichen in 2022.
Right.
But I think teams' defenses caught up to how to slow down the RPO game, and now what they're trying to do is figure out the best way to combat sort of the Shanahan, McVay, O'Connell tree. The Eagles correctly identified that and said, hey, we want that. We want what those teams are doing. That's what's having the most success in the NFL these days.
All right, let's get a lot of calls in here. Ross with us for a full hour. Reminder, it's the first day of Philly spring training, so if you want to comment on the Phils, please do. And also Sixers-Knicks. Sixers-Knicks play tonight. It could be a playoff preview. Obviously,